This is the story of Oisin and how he became the last of the Fianna. There are many, many stories of Oisin. After all, he was the son of Finn McCool. His mother was Sieve. Finn McCool had met Sieve in the woods when he was hunting one day because Sieve, she had been cursed by a druid for rebuffing his advances and she had become a deer.
Thankfully, Finn McCool did not kill her, as had been his intent on the hunt. Instead, he looked into her eyes and saw the beauty that lay there, and so he broke the curse and took her as his wife. Oisin was born, his name meaning little fawn, but there was nothing little about Oisin.
Oisin also met his wife on a hunting trip. Didn't hunt her down as Finn had with Sieve. No. In fact, she hunted him down. He was sat around the fire with the Fiannan warriors and they were telling noisy stories of their victories and conquests and adventures. When they were approached from far off by a woman on a white horse. She possessed an ethereal beauty that none of them had ever seen before, and her long golden hair fell like tresses around her shoulders. As she approached the fire, the men fell silent. She introduced herself as Neve, daughter of the great sea god Manon MacLear. Now, the men, they did not interrupt her and ask her what she was doing there. They knew better than to interrupt the daughter of a great sea god. Instead, they let her continue. She explained how she was due to marry, but that she did not want to marry just anybody. No, she had heard of the exploits and deeds of Oisin and the Fiannan, and she was intrigued by this warrior, this famed warrior, and she wished that he would be her husband. As she spoke, her words were like honey, and her looks, well, as I've explained, they were most definitely otherworldly and beguiling. And so right in front of their eyes, Oisin fell in love with Neve.
No one really knows how Oisin fell so easily. Perhaps it was indeed the goddess, fairy, however you wish to label her. Perhaps it was indeed her magic, her glamour. Or perhaps Oisin knew better than to refuse the wishes of the fae folk. Some say it was actually because she had the head of a pig, and that she had been cursed and therefore asked Oisin to lift that curse, and as any honourable warrior might find, he could not refuse.
So whatever it is that you believe, whichever one of those tales, well, either way, Oisin did fall in love with Neve, and they travelled across the lands to Tir na Nog, where Neve had a palace and where her people dwelt. In order to get there, they had to travel across the sea, and eventually a great sea fret greeted them. They travelled through it, and there was Tir na Nog. Oisin spent 3 happy years in Tir na Nog. He loved his new family and his wife, of course, and they had children. But Oisin often wondered what had happened to the Fiannan and what adventures they'd been on without him in those 3 years. And he begged Neve to let him return to this land.
After many months of petitioning, Neve eventually gave in, and she said, "You will have to take my horse, that pure white horse I spoke of at the beginning."
Take my horse across the lands and the seas to where you once dwelt. But remember this, Oisin, never ever get down from the horse. Oisin took that journey to the land where he once lived, and when he arrived at the castle, where he had enjoyed many a celebratory feast with the Fianna, well, he found that it was in ruins. There were stones scattered all around, and any crenellations still standing were covered in moss and lichen. He looked around at the landscape and found that he did not recognise it anymore. It was not the landscape that he had left. And in his confusion, he forgot Neve's words. He swung his leg over the back of the horse, and he got down, his feet landing firmly on the ground.
His legs buckled, his knees could no longer take his weight, and his throat felt dry. He was barely able to speak, and it was at this point that he realised why Neve had told him not to get down from the horse. He had heard many stories of the other world. He told a few himself, but he never thought for 1 minute that it would happen to him. That time would pass differently. That the 3 years that he had spent in Tir na Nog would be 300 in the land he left. It was a priest that found him. And when Oisin was able to speak his name in stuttered syllables, the priest looked at him confused. And he said, "Well, if you are indeed the Oisin that disappeared from here 300 years ago, then I am very sorry. Everyone you ever knew has gone, and you are the last of the Fianna." Oisin nodded. He knew this was the truth. And the priest took Oisin home and nursed him through his last days, for, unfortunately, listener, Oisin was not going to survive this one last adventure. As priests often do, the priest recorded Oisin's stories, and those stories of the Fianna and Finn McCall. He recorded them as Oisin told those stories with his last breaths, through strained sentences and cracked lips. And those stories are the stories that we know today, and that is how we know of those great feats of those warriors. And, well, they do say that across in the land of Tir na Nog, Oisin has many sons and daughters. He was there for 3 years. And when I say many sons and daughters, I mean he had sons and a daughter who then had sons and daughters, and there are many more of them there. A whole clan, if you like. Another set of Fianna, perhaps. And maybe when we have need of them, if we're very lucky, they might come when we call. And there might be hope for us yet, for they were great warriors, the Fianna. And perhaps they will be our salvation.